Daniel, what's going on?
Hi, Risa. It's nice to see you again. It's been quite some time.
Yeah, I know we've been very overdue for a chat, and I'm excited because today we're going to talk real estate, which is a favorite topic that a lot of people like to talk about, especially when it comes to Mexico.
Correct.
But today I want to focus on specifically coastal cities, right? Because
Hmm.
it's a little bit different buying, say, in a Puerto Vallarta versus a Mexico City. But today we're going to focus
Right.
kind of on the edges.
Okay.
And I know this is your specialty because you
Hmm.
do live in Puerto Vallarta and that's where you're a real estate agent. Um, but kind of like, why don't you give me a little bit of, I guess, before we get into the nitty gritty of buying real
Hmm.
estate? You're specific to Puerto Vallarta. So where's Puerto Vallarta and some other kind of major coastal beach towns where you see expats moving?
Sure. Well, Puerto Vallarta is in the state of Jalisco, and from Los Angeles, it's about a 3-hour flight, like straight down. And PV itself is in Banderas Bay, located smack in the center of the bay. So Banderas Bay is kind of like a crescent moon, and Vallarta is right in the middle. And to the south of us, we have Manzanillo. And to the north of us, like on the Baja Peninsula, you would have Cabo. So we're all on that Pacific coastline.
And then on the East Coast, like popular places are like Cancun,
Yes,
Playa
Tulum.
del Carmen.
Hmm.
It's those spots that tend to be the most popular. There are, of course, a lot of other beach towns up and down the coast, but I feel like a lot of people tend to flock there. And then also all over the Baja as well, right?
Correct.
You have a Todos Santos and La Paz, and then there's also Mazatlan, which I feel like is having a little bit of a resurgence. So tell me, when someone wants to purchase real estate,
Hmm.
in a beach town, because that's really the most popular, to be honest. What should they be looking out for, and how is it different than, say, purchasing property elsewhere in the U.S., Canada, anywhere else in the world?
Okay, sure. So when a foreigner is acquiring a property along the coastline, that's called the restricted zone. So the restricted zone is 50 kilometers from the coastline and 100 kilometers from the international border. So, like you as a U.S. citizen, if you're going to buy a condo or a house in Vallarta, you would have the title held in a trust with an authorized Mexican bank. So we call that a real estate trust, a fideicomiso. The trust has a term of 50 years, and then you could renew it. And then you could have your beneficiaries in the trust, so kind of like your heirs, if you want to leave it to your children or to friends or some other family member. And there's an annual trust fee. Right now, the annual trust fee is around $450 plus tax, so that's $522. The sales tax in Mexico is 16%. And that's basically it. It's a very simple, easy mechanism. We've had this around for quite some time. Now, if you set up a Mexican corporation, you don't need the trust. Or if you're a Mexican national, you don't need a trust to purchase property in the restricted zone.
Well, can anybody set up a Mexican corporation,
You would have to be a resident of Mexico for a foreigner.
permanent or temporary, or either?
You could be a temporary or permanent resident and set up a corporation. Yeah. So, but a lot of people don't have a corporation, and unless they have like a business in Vallarta. Like I have a client of mine who owns a couple of hotels, and he's got a corporation set up. So one of the properties that he had purchased was under the name of the corporation because they would have some overflow from the hotel staying at their rental condo from time to time. So it made sense for him to set up the corporation that way and use it for the condo.
So, what are the benefits of having a trust? I don't think this is a mechanism that most people are used to. I mean, they do own the property, right?
Right. They have a full right and ownership rights to the property. I mean, they could lease it. They can get a bank loan if they want on the property. And it's really secure. So one of the key things is, like your heirs, your beneficiaries, you're going to leave in there. So if someone's going to come out and contest it and say, hey, you know what, I'm also, her child, I have rights to the property. Basically, whoever you left in the trust, they're going to get the property. And you don't have to go through a probate. So just usually a few months, you provide a notarized or apostille copy of a death certificate if the primary beneficiary passed away outside of Mexico, like in the States. And then the notary and your trust bank here will start to process to recognize secondary beneficiary through an assignment of trust rights, where they become the primary beneficiary. So they're the owner, so to say, to the property. So it's a very simple, easy process.
And what are the benefits to doing a trust? I mean, I guess you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, you have
But
to have a trust if it's along the coastline. Now, if you're purchasing in Guadalajara, Mexico City, as you pointed out, you don't need a real estate trust, so the title can be directly under your name. But for the foreigner acquiring the property in the restricted zone in that region, has to have a trust. Now, if you're purchasing the property, let's say with a Mexican national, this is a question I get asked. Well, what if one of the buyers is a Mexican citizen? So long as there is a foreigner involved that's purchasing the property in the restricted zone, you do need the trust. Unless you're going to put the title under the Mexican national's name and you're not going to be on it, then you don't need a real estate trust, but you do need to have a trust with the owner of the property if you're going to just have the title under their name.
and then when you sell, are you dissolving the trust? What are you doing? Or then, like, if you
So,
were to say sell and then buy another property, what
right.
happens in that case?
So, if so, the trust has a term of 50 years, and so if you're let's say the third year into it, you want to sell the property, and the buyer who's interested in purchasing your home is a foreigner. Now they can take over your trust because there are 47 years left, or your trust can get canceled, and then they're just going to open up a new trust on their own. Again, the process is very easy. We work with the notaries and the real estate attorneys to get all that done for you. So those are the two options. So either the buyer wants to acquire your trust, or they say, no, I want my own trust. So you're gonna have to cancel yours, and they can go that route.
Is there an advantage to either one?
So if the foreigner acquires your trust, generally speaking, we can close sooner. And there's no foreign affairs permit that's going to be charged to the buyer. However, if the foreigner is going to take over your trust, you as the the buyer has to show up to the closing or give someone the power of attorney. Now, if the foreign buyer, if they decide to open up a brand new trust, they don't have to be at the closing. They just sign a letter stating that their real estate trust representative, the bank trust representative, is going to sign the deed on their behalf.
Wow. And then what about closing costs and that sort of thing? What sorts of should people be saving? What percentage of their money should they be saving for closing costs?
Yeah, really good question. So the laws can change, so I'm just going to tell you where we're at right now. I've seen closing costs here in Vallarta for condos and homes anywhere from 3.5 to 5.5, 6%. There are two of the purchase price, right? So you kind of add that on top. Worst case scenario, it's going to just factor in on the higher end. There are a couple of itemized expenses in your buyer closing costs that's deductible from capital gains tax when you sell, and that's the transfer tax, which is usually the largest expense in your buyer's closing cost, and the notary's legal fee to perform the operation. So long as you have the legal invoices, facturas for those two, then you can offset those expenses from capital gains tax when you sell in the future. Now, the laws can change by the time you sell or by the time you buy, but this is where we're at right now.
Interesting. So you buy a property, right? Someone's bought a property, they're planning on retiring to Mexico, to PV, or wherever. But they're not quite ready to live there full time, which I see a lot of, right? There's a lot of
Yes.
kind of slower transitioning, and they want to, say, rent out their property. I'm assuming, so they have full rights to rent out if they're purchasing a condo, right?
Yes, if their condo building allows for rentals, they can rent it out. And most of the buildings here do allow for rentals. There are a handful where the rentals aren't allowed. Now, you do need to be registered with the Mexican tax authorities, so you're going to be generating income by renting out your property in Mexico. You need to be filing and paying your income taxes in Mexico. Some people think they can just kind of stay off the grid and hopefully not get caught by the Mexican tax authorities. That's not a good idea. Pay your taxes. You're generating income, get legally set up. There are a lot of wonderful Mexican accountants here in Vallarta that could help you set up, get your Mexican tax ID number after you become a temporary or permanent resident, so you can file and then pay your income tax. Now, some property management companies, and I'll get into why some people use property management companies. But if you do wind up hiring a property management company, some of them do have the services in place where they may be able to pay the taxes on your behalf. So that's something to discuss with property management companies.
Oh, wow. So do you need to be a resident in order to purchase property in Mexico?
No, as of right now, you do not need to be a temporary or permanent resident to purchase a property in Mexico. The laws can change. I don't
You
know.
just need a lot of cash.
Well, that's
Wads of cash.
yeah, that's funny. Mortgages are available in Mexico. People think that, oh, it's a cash market. I mean, in my particular market, most of our buyers are paying cash. The majority of my buyers are baby boomers, but we are getting a lot of younger buyers coming into the marketplace, especially in the last 10 years. We have a lot of people, as young as, in their early 30s, or I've had a few in their late 20s, sometimes with the help of mom and dad. They're able to get like a nice little piece of property here, like a one bedroom or studio, and over time they'll just kind of upgrade and get a larger place and rent a place out. So, but mortgages are available. The interest rates are different. It's a little bit higher than what we're accustomed to in the States and Canada, but with interest rates going up in the States and Canada now, so we're kind of like not too far off. There is a closing cost associated with the loan. But there are a lot of wonderful mortgage lenders here. So if someone's interested in getting a property and getting a mortgage, they can just contact me and I'll get them set up.
Yeah, so that's right. So a lot of people, they either finance at home, either through a home equity loan on their house in the States or
Yes.
Canada or wherever it may be. Um, and then they use that money to purchase in Mexico,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Um,
and actually last year when the interest rates were so low, what is it now? Like 6 point something, I think, in the
yeah,
States,
it's
if I'm
getting
not.
up there.
So remember, like it was like just under three, around three, maybe about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago. A lot of people did do that. So they did tap out some type of an equity line of credit in the States, paid very low interest, and bought an investment property here in PV, and it's generating more income and then just paying off the mortgage back at home, and then enjoying the place for themselves. Whenever they come down, whether it's during the winter months or just coming and going, throughout the year.
It's so awesome. And yeah, actually, this segues into a free webinar that we are offering, actually, if people are interested in purchasing real estate in Mexico. It's part of a bigger webinar where we talk about, what places that you might want to live depending on your lifestyle preferences. And then Taniel kind of does a deeper dive into what you need to know in terms of purchasing restaurants, purchasing real estate. And then then we go into healthcare and healthcare options for foreigners. I'm going to put the link below if you're interested in registering, and it's completely free. It is part of a larger program that we have. You were talking about, paying your taxes if you purchase property. We interview an accountant and healthcare professionals and bankers and all the things that you need to know in order to make a smooth move to Mexico. As we kind of wrap this up, I'm just trying to think. So, if someone is seriously thinking about purchasing real estate in Mexico, what do you think are some of the first steps people should be taking in order to, educate themselves, right? To understand what the process is really going to be like, because you want to go in educated, right? You don't want to, and I think a part of that is actually picking an excellent real estate agent like yourself, who's going to kind of really hold your hand through the process, because it can be kind of complicated pretty quickly if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, just like in the States, transactions can fall apart, but you're buying you're buying a home in a foreign country, so you're really kind of out of your element, and it's really important to be able to connect with the right professionals in that city. So that's from your real estate agent to a real estate attorney. If you're going to be renting out the place, the right accountant. So that's really key, and that might take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to interview a few people. You're going to look them up online, and then having some factual, accurate information. Like when we put the program together for everyone, like you just pointed out, Risa, and it was really key for us to interview the professionals and not just someone that's been to Vallarta for 10 years and they're at the beach, partying all the time and they've got all the advice in the world. Sometimes that might not be the best person to ask about real estate law and how to acquire property. So connecting with the right person. And then, if you've been to a particular city once or twice and you haven't seen the entire city, you just kind of gone to the touristic area or just kind of stayed around where your hotel is, it might be time to explore, because there might be a lot more like great areas and neighborhoods you just haven't discovered yet. So maybe go down. Let's say if you're interested in Vallarta, come down, maybe stay for a week or two if you can, and explore the bay. I mean, the bay is pretty big, and from the vibe in Bucerias, that's the northern part of the bay, is different than Fluvial, than the romantic zone, Conchas Chinas, Mismaloya. And if you don't know these areas, you want to stay here for about a week or so you can explore and discover these regions, and then start looking at real estate in those areas to see if there's something that's within the price range you're looking for, and the look and the feel. Architecturally speaking, the right floor plan, the kitchen, and the views. So and again, this might not happen overnight, but if you just take one step, you could take the next step and the next step, and then eventually you'll find yourself living in your new Mexican home.
That's awesome. Yeah. I did have somebody give me the great advice that, if you were to take a few weeks, right, don't stay in one spot, right? Rent out places in different neighborhoods so that you can really check them out, and see if you do
Yes.
like the feel of it,
Yeah.
during different times of the day. Because I think there's something to be said about living in a neighborhood versus just like visiting it for an afternoon type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. And there's so many amazing, neighborhoods in PV and a lot of these coastal towns. There's just like so many like really fun nooks and crannies, and that takes some exploring and it takes time.
And I mean, some of the best exploring you can do is go off the beaten path, and you'll discover, like wonderful little, mom and pop eateries and retail shops. And, everything is not in the touristic zone. And that's one of the beautiful things about some of these old cities like Vallarta. Well, we've got turning a bit modern as well. But, you go to Mexico and you just kind of go off the beaten path. You walk a couple of blocks. All of a sudden, you're in this really charming, whimsical little neighborhood you just never knew was there. And that's why you want to stay for a while and just kind of explore on your own. And you don't necessarily need to be with your real estate agent, having them drive you to a neighborhood. I mean, just go at your own pace, because, sometimes these professionals, I mean, they're kind of on the clock. They've got other clients and they don't want to rush you, but their kind of time is limited. So if you just kind of go on your own, you can explore as long as you want or as little as you want. You might just, step foot and go, nah, this isn't for me, and leave. Or you just might want to be like, what, I want to stay here for a few hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, just kind of walk and really take it all in, absorb the neighborhood. And that's that you can do on your own if you're here for a while and not just like a 3-day trip. Because if you're doing this marathon run, if you don't know which neighborhood you want to be in, you just might go crazy and not really unwind and have a good time.
Totally agreed.
Yeah,
So true.
I've done it. I've rushed, and it's like a tornado. I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot. What did I look at? Because you look at 5-6 neighborhoods in one day, and it all kind of meshes together, right?
Yeah, so true. So true. Oh my God, Taniel, thank you so much. This is so awesome, as usual. For people who want to join that free webinar, the link is down below. It's dreamretirementinmexico.com/webinar. And I'll also put Taniel's information down below as well, so you can go and check him out and do a little, see maybe you want to hire him as your next real estate agent for your purchase in Puerto Vallarta. But
Thanks for the plug.
Taniel, thank you so much.
Thanks, Risa.